Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and another cozy crochet vlog. For this video, we are going to go ahead and work on our next book, Granny Square. I have a very exciting one to talk to you about. We'll get into that in a minute. But first, if you don't know who I am, my name is Tiffany and I am a teacher turned work from home mom, and I have been sharing my crochet journey on YouTube for a while now. I got this idea to work on a book blanket in 2026 because I was in a huge reading slump and because of the fact that I just want to be able to talk about books again because it is what I used to teach about in the classroom. I've already done a video on the first two books I read this year, so today we're going to talk about 3 and 4. Go check out that first video if you want to see the first two books I've talked about, but this is how it works here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the colors that I picked. We are going to go ahead and do a quick little summary of what the book is about, no spoilers, and then I will go ahead and just tell you my thoughts of the book and my rating, and we're going to do all that while I work on the Granny Square. So let's go ahead and get started. So the book we're talking about today is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Here is the cover of the book, and here are the colors we are going to use to go ahead and create the Granny Square for it. So we have a little hint of the blue in the center, and then all those tones kind of on the outside. So let's go ahead and get started. So this book is about Alice, and she is working on this story. She's been kind of trying to research it and find this person, Margaret Ives, who comes from this really famous family but has disappeared for a really long time. And she thinks she actually found her somewhere. And as a writer, she wants to tell her story. So she flies to Georgia, where this person that she thinks is Margaret Ives is, to kind of meet her in person, talk to her, and then hopefully get the opportunity to write this book with her. So she gets there, she does this interview, and as she's leaving, she realizes that she is not the only person who found Margaret and that she has some competition. So the person that shows up is this guy named Hayden, and he is this very famous author. He is this like Pulitzer Prize winning author. So she's thinking like, I am screwed. Like, I am not going to get this job now. And she's really bummed about it. So Margaret, because it does end up being Margaret, talks to both of them, and she decides that she needs to figure out who she wants to work with. And she tells them that she wants to talk to them for the next month before she decides who she wants to work with. So that leads to Hayden and Alice moving to this island in Georgia for the next month, talking to Margaret, kind of working against each other in a way so that they can try to get this job. And then because it's a small island, what ends up happening is that Hayden, who is the author from New York, and Alice keep running into each other, and they kind of start spending time together because they don't know anyone else. So the book basically follows those two characters, Hayden and Alice, as they are interviewing and working with Margaret. So you kind of have two stories happening at once, and that is Margaret Ives' story about like her famous family and what happened to her, and where she went, because that is a huge mystery. But then you also have the story of Hayden and Alice and what's going on with them on the island. They work really hard on not talking about Margaret at all outside of their meetings with her because they do them separately, and it is kind of like a competition of like who is going to get to work with her. But as the story goes on, it comes up a little bit, and you can kind of see that things don't always feel right with Margaret, and they're trying to like figure out what's really going on with her. But as the story goes on, Hayden and Alice become closer and closer, and it becomes harder for them to keep things separate. And they worry about what's going to happen when Margaret picks one of them to write her story and one of them has to go home. Yeah, so that's basically the book. It's these two characters fighting for the spot, and they become close, they become romantic, and then also Margaret's story in the background, and how does everything kind of entwined. Let's go ahead and talk about my review on the book. I absolutely love this book, and I do love a lot of books by Emily Henry, but this is probably one of my favorites, I would say, and I'm going to go ahead and give it 5 stars. It is just such a sweet, beautiful read, in my opinion. I really just loved the characters and their development throughout. I was honestly engrossed in both stories. Like, I really wanted to know Margaret's story and how this 80-year-old was living in Georgia secretly from this famous family. I was loving hearing about her life. So I was loving hearing about her life through these interviews that she was telling Alice. And then on the off time when they weren't interviewing, I loved the interactions between Hayden and Alice and how their relationship grew, but then how also you could figure out like there were these signs that something else was going on with Margaret, and you were just kind of waiting to see like what that was. It was just such a cute, beautiful read without it being like boring. Like I hate to call it easy, but it was, but like also just really good storytelling because you have these really different characters. Like Alice is definitely like a people pleaser and she's an optimist, and then you have Hayden who's more of like the brooding type, but you get to see their layers and their personality as the book goes on, like Alice's relationship with her mom and how that's complicated. The book is also not spice heavy, so it's telling and creating this love story without all of the extra spice that some books have. Yeah, so as the book goes on, you're just like, there is something weird going on with Margaret, and you're like, there's just things not adding up. And then you're kind of getting to the point where you're like, what is going to happen between Alice and Hayden? Like, once this month that they're together on this island ends and Margaret picks someone to write her book. So that's basically where I'm going to stop talking about that because I don't want to spoil anything. But I will say there was a twist at the end of the book that I didn't necessarily guess, but I had a feeling there was something extra that was going to happen. And once it was revealed, I was like, oh, like that is and makes so much sense. So there is this kind of nice, cool, interesting twist at the end of the story. So we love to see that. Everything just works beautifully together. There's one point at the end of the book where there's this letter that comes up, and I am actually listening to it on audiobook, and I'm by my daughter and she's working on something, but I am listening to this audiobook, and this letter was so good. It's at the end of the book and beautiful that I just was like happy crying, like sweet. This is the most beautiful thing, crying while listening to it. My daughter was like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh baby, it's not sad tears, these are happy tears. And she was like, it's okay. Definitely a book that can get an emotional response from you like that is a good sign. So this was one of those. Is very exciting to have another 5-star book in a row. Like I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm reading another one right now that I've already started that I'm also really liking. So that'll be the second book in this video. Hopefully I can get that one done and filmed soon. Yeah, so this is a great book. I really enjoyed it. I think it's great for anyone who wants just a beautiful romance book that doesn't have a lot of spice in it. It has great storytelling, you know, some twists. I like how things are woven together. I think the story is super interesting. I love the characters. I do love Emily Henry books, so if you've read this one already, definitely check out some of her other books, or even books by Abby Jimenez. I love her too. Same kind of vibe. You read this book, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Let me know what you thought about it. I love to hear your thoughts and your opinions on these books too. If you have any recommendations for what I should read next, please let me know below. I feel like I'm really stingy with my 5-star reads. I swear they're not all going to be like that. So let me know, like, are you someone who gives out 5 stars willy-nilly, or are you pretty stingy with them? Because I'm actually surprised that I've talked about 3 books and 2 of them have already had 5 stars. If you didn't watch the first video, I also gave a book in that video 5 stars. So if you're interested in what that was, make sure you go ahead and check it out. All right, all done. Let's go ahead and compare our granny square to the cover of our book. This is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, and this is the granny square that we ended up with. What do you think? I have been storing these in my office, so I'm going to show you how I have been doing that before we go. But that's all I have for book number 3 of 2026. Eventually we will have a bunch of these granny squares and we'll make something with them, but we're going to talk about book number 4 next, so I'll see you in just a minute. So I can add them right on here when I'm done. So I've been storing all my granny squares right on this pegboard, and we are up to 3. All right, my friends, we are back. We are talking about another book. This is the second book in this video and the 4th book that I've read this year that we are creating a granny square for. So today we're going to be talking about Mate by Allie Hazelwood. Here is the cover, and these are the 4 colors I thought we would use. This is like the brightest green that I have. There's like the gray, the white, and the black. So let's just get into it. We're going to do what I don't know where this blue came from, so ignore that if you saw it. Okay, so let's just start with this white. So this is technically a second book in a series, but it's that whole thing now where they like do different characters for each book. So we're not focusing on the same characters from the first book in the series, which was called Bride. I've read that one already. And that one we focus on a vampire and were characters. And in this book, it's in that same universe, and we're just focusing on different characters. There's some overlap. You're still seeing those first characters from the first book in this book, but they're not to the focus anymore, which I feel like is becoming such like a popular thing. Like writing these series, but it's in a universe instead of following the same characters through each book. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, for this book, we are following Serena, Misery's friend, and Cohen, another alpha for a different territory. Serena is a hybrid, so she is half human, half werewolf. And as far as the world knows, like she is one of one. Okay, next we're gonna do gray. So because of the fact that she is this hybrid, like a lot of people are trying to get to her, so she's not exactly safe right now. The thing that happens right at the beginning of the book is Cohen, the alpha for a different territory, the Northwest Territory, tells her that she is his mate. She really doesn't even understand like the implications of the seriousness of that, because from the first book you learn like a mated bond is obviously a big deal for werewolves, but she just recently found out she was a werewolf, so she doesn't really get it. So she's staying in Cohen's territory for protection currently. But she's staying there for protection because, you know, people are putting bounties on her heads and she doesn't want to put other people in danger. And she's staying with this person who's supposedly her mate, but they are like not super close because of the fact that like she's still figuring out her own stuff and he's acting like he's not really interested, but there's more to that and why he is acting that way, which you find out later. Yeah, so basically the whole thing is about her dealing with the fact that she is this werewolf hybrid and trying to be safe, figuring out her past, dealing with this bond that she has with Cohen and the fact that they're supposed to be mated and what ends up happening with that. So there's a lot going on in this story. All right, next color we're going to do is black. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with my rating. So like I said, I read the first book and I honestly was not really into the first book. If we're being completely honest, it really was not my thing. It was just kind of So I had put off reading this book until it became available and I was just like, you know what? I've already read the first one. Let's just try it. And I'm so glad that I read the second one because I actually like this second book more than I liked the first book in the series. I don't know if it's just the characters, the vibes, or what, but I like this one more than the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 4-star rating. What I really liked about this book is honestly, I think the characters and the way the story progresses. So I think I like Serena more than I like Misery, and she is the focus of the first book and she is the vampire friend. I was just more invested in these characters, I think. I thought the story was more interesting about this hybrid werewolf, and I honestly liked the love story of this one more than I liked the one in Bride. I thought it progressed really well, and even though there's like a lot going on in terms of problems, like there's the whole why they can't be mated issue, like Cohen has a reason, there's the tension between Cohen and Serena, there's Serena's issues in health as a hybrid werewolf, there is her family secrets that she finds out. So once you say it all out loud and there's like so much going on, you kind of think like these things can't all work in a story, but it's written so well that it just does. And it doesn't really feel like there are things that aren't being told enough or like left out, like Powerless. Remember when I talked about Powerless? I was like, oh, the whole like games or whatever, it was just, it felt like an afterthought, but I didn't really feel like that with this book. Okay, so next let's talk about why I took a star off. So for this book, there is some spice. I'd say a lot of it is like build up and tension, but then, you know, we get to the real deal. And the issue with it is that some of it's just, to be honest, weird because it gets really like werewolf specific in terms of like anatomy and like wolf anatomy, and like I just was not into that. Just kind of was like, oof. It kind of gave me the ick, actually. And that was another thing that I didn't like about Bride too, is this whole like knot thing. If you know, you know, is just like so gross, and it felt too like animalistic and like gross, disgusting to me. So that is something I could have done without, and it's the reason I'm definitely taking a star off, because I just hate that, and I hated it in the first one. I hate that it was a part of the second one. Like, can we just have a regular spice scene? And really, that's the only reason I would take a star off for this one, because like I said, I like this one so much more. So I'm kind of curious if there's going to be a third book in this universe, and I'm wondering how they could continue the story, because I don't know what's left. But I really liked the resolution of this one. I thought it was cute, and I liked this one so much that if a third book came out, I would be interested in trying it, because like I said, I didn't plan on reading this one, but I'm glad I gave it a shot. I have no idea what I'm going to read next. I haven't even started it yet, but this is my fourth book, and I am really proud of that. As always, if you've read Bride or Mate by Ali Hazelwood and you want to share your thoughts on it, I'd love to hear them, as well as the other books I talked about in this video. I am also always open for book recommendations. Like I said, I read all kinds of things. After this, I'm going to go check my Spotify, because I listen to audiobooks on there, and also check my Libby holds to see what we should read next. Okay, that is Granny Square number 4 done. Here is the cover, and here is the Granny Square. What do you think? We are done with book 3 and book 4 for our 2026 book blanket. Thank you so much for being here. I will weave in these ends in my free time, not bore you with that. It has been so fun as a former English teacher to just read more books this year and get out of my reading slump. I can't wait to see how many squares we can create this year. If you missed my first video talking about the first 2 books I read this year, go ahead and check that out in the description below. Otherwise, if you want to see more of me, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram, where I share more mom and lifestyle content. Otherwise, I'll see you next time for another cozy crochet vlog or our next book blanket video. Bye.